So, hello everyone. My name is Anatoly Yakimets. I'm product manager in Elastic Path, and I'm excited to welcome you Elastic Path webinar, which is dedicated to reference experiences. And today we have two awesome speakers for you. We have Jeremy McMullen, senior product manager in Elastic Path, who will give you a business overview of reference experiences. We'll give you the industry context, what reference experiences is. We'll talk about the value for you and your customers, and also we'll talk about the product roadmap. After that, we will have a short product demo featuring Reference Store and Alexa. And then Sean Maharaj, development manager at Elastic Path, will provide a technical overview of reference experiences. He will talk about the use cases. He will talk about how you can leverage Cortex best practices. We'll also talk about commitment of new reference experiences, and we'll give a technical product demo. During the webinar, if you will have any questions, please submit them to the chat, or we will have also a live Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Thanks everyone for joining again. And with that being said, I'm handing over to Jeremy for the business overview section.
Great. Thanks, Anatoly. Hi, everyone. I'll begin by, as Anatoly said, setting the ground with some industry context. So what we see in the industry are three main groupings of customers with three quite different focuses. And these kind of drive everything from the needs that these customers have and the experiences that they desire. So on the left-hand side, what we actually sort of see is customers with what we would call the transaction focus. So these customers may be more focused on getting a digital storefront up and running so that they can transact as quickly as possible. So supporting this classification of customers naturally are the digital storefront, a commerce platform or ecosystem. And what we typically call this is this kind of grouping or classification across this kind of spectrum is a commerce-led architecture. So looking a little bit further to the right, we do definitely sort of see people transition from that transaction focus further right over time. We see businesses as really customer experience focused. And this drives the technology selections that they make. Typically what we sort of see here is DXPs and CMSs being adopted. That's to help them obviously support the needs of new internal stakeholders like the digital marketer, to support the content repository and content creation in all its various forms. So from there, supporting the DXP is naturally the commerce platform and ecosystem. And this is really the change of focus here is around a shift towards more experience-led with, as I said, the DXP and CMS, for want of a better word, managing the glass. And then we see at the furthest right, customers with a different focus again, this customer experience innovation focus, let's sort of say. And this is more additive than anything else to maybe that CX focus kind of grouping. We still see the same, many of the same technology choices, particularly around DXP and CMS adoption, but we see people also stretching for net new touch points through which they want to enable commerce and reach out to customers. So a lot more individual touch points are being enabled. And for that, naturally, these businesses, as they actually try and grow in this way, they actually need support from other supporting systems. And a big component of this to support the commerce side is an API backbone. So this CX innovation kind of grouping, we'd actually sort of say is supported by the API-oriented architecture. Naturally, people transition across this, but I think it's important to actually ground it at this is some of the different focus areas that different customers have. Next, I'd just like to talk about some specific scenarios that we actually sort of see, and some of the technology choices and what that actually means for us together, both Elastic Path and our partners. So just talking a little bit about the first, I'll go through four here. We'll go through them stepwise. We might sort of say, obviously we come across this where our customers may be starting out on that digital experience journey. They want to enable maybe that single channel, and they don't yet have the needs around CMS. So naturally they're looking at what do they actually need around a storefront to enable the transactions and a commerce platform to support that. Naturally, then customer might transition to look at other channels. What we sort of see here is effectively some of the same technologies involved, but actually new touch points being surfaced. So omni-channel, but again, maybe with some of the same technology choices, and not yet involving maybe the CMS and the DXPs. Next, and this is probably a very common scenario for us and our partners, is that notion of the CMS being involved, and not only involved, but actually managing that storefront. But this is still omni-channel, so we actually still have those need for additional touch points. So what you sort of see here in the orange is the storefront kind of being managed by the CMS, but an important component that actually that we want to reference here is the addition of SDK type capabilities, which allow the enablement of commerce type capabilities within the CMS as well too. So that these work very much in tandem, even if the CMS is actually managing a large portion, or managing the glass, and managing the direct end user experience. And finally, an emergent kind of scenario that we sort of see is really this omni-channel, but with a headless CMS. So a variant on this, the CMS is again doing what it should be doing, managing the content and actually all the authoring. But what it actually doesn't necessarily do in this case is manage the glass. So there's that need for actually plugging in something that does. So that storefront again. The omni-channel approach is still the same. Obviously, net new touch points are there, and underlying all of these naturally is the commerce platform. And the thing to call out here really is that these are the scenarios that we come across. Elastic Path is agnostic to these. We actually sort of see the market and its variability as being something that we need to address by enabling whatever scenarios that we sort of see our customers and our partners having to deal with, and provide both a platform and in a large point these reference experiences to help support the various different types of developments that our partners need to do on behalf. So without further ado, I'll just touch on all the reference experiences, the ones that we actually have today. Sean Maharaj is going to go into more detail on a lot of these, but working left to right again, we have our PWA storefront. And a very specific choice of technology there around PWA. It's both cutting edge, but also well understood by the developer community. And that's a thread that goes through a large portion of our reference experience work, is that it can be picked up and is consumable and digestible by a developer community. So the PWA storefront on the left-hand side has really two main kind of I suppose web properties, one that focuses on B2C and one that focuses also on B2B. And it's probably the one that's been longest running. So we managed to integrate this with a reasonable number of different platforms, mainly to showcase what's possible within a reference store type environment. So we have things like shoppable videos from Indie, digital assets from Amplience, ratings and review. That was actually a partner contribution, which Sean will actually talk to, and things naturally like social sharing. So that definitely is an area of focus for us, and it's constantly evolving, as Sean will actually talk to. And our strategy, as we actually look right, is really to actually look at the various other touch points that are significant to, or certainly emergent and becoming significant to our partners and to the end customers. So we now have an Alexa skill to cover the voice assistant section, the Facebook chatbot to cover chatbots more generally, and to cover augmented reality, we have an integration with ARKit. And very much what we wanted to do is actually to build out the breadth of our touch points and to illustrate the patterns and technology choices that were necessary in order to deal with these new platforms before we were to go too deep and tackle many voice assistants, many chatbots, maybe different types of augmented reality. So we've definitely proven out a lot of the proud of the technology patterns and choices, and they're there and ready and consumable. One thing I should reference here is that all of these reference experiences are production grade reference experiences. They are performance tested. They're fully supported by Elastic Path, and they're ready for anybody to pick up, to adapt, to adopt them wholesale, to adapt them. And these are open source projects. So we're actively looking for contributions to them. I've referenced one partner that actually has made contributions, but yeah, it's a very considered approach by us as a kind of to support the community, let's sort of say. And the last point before I hand over, I just want to talk briefly to the value of the various reference experiences and how we see partners being able to capitalize on them. So a big one for us, which I think I've referenced, is really accelerated development. We're, as I said, purposeful in the choices that we made, and we really see these as pieces that can be adopted wholesale, adopted very quickly, so that any partner team, any partner development team can really become very productive very quickly and meet the needs of whatever the end customer demands are. The second item is really around Cortex best practices and learning those. Naturally, as the developers of Cortex and the fact that we have built some of these reference experiences for partners and for end customers, naturally you can look to these to actually learn how we as the inventors of Cortex have actually utilized the Cortex API to its best. And a number of partners have actually attested to that this was a great learning experience for them, and their development teams were able to consume this very quickly and understand and get a jump start on Cortex development. And lastly, these should be seen as a library of sorts that you can pull from to actually to satisfy new experiences for your customers as a partner, and to differentiate your business as well too, and to add value with additive pieces on top of these for your customers as well too. As I sort of said, these are open source projects, so they are perfect for that in terms of being added to and actually contributing whatever you need. So I think with that sort of said, I think what we'll do is I'll hand back to Anatoly to cover this next section.
So now I will give you a quick overview of Reference Store and Alexa to demonstrate how these two separate reference experiences can enable an omni-channel customer journey. So this is the Elastic Path Reference Store, and I believe many of you have already seen it. We won't do a deep dive demo today, but if you feel like you need one, please reach out to our partner team so that we can organize a proper deep dive demo. So this reference store provides you with all the necessary aspects to enable shopping journey for your customers. You can browse for different products. You can filter the products by brand, by their product features. Obviously, you can select the products. There is a product description. There's image, different other assets. You can share the product with social channels. You can add it to the wish list, and you can obviously add it to the shopping cart. And at this point, I will switch to Alexa Shopping Flow to demonstrate how you can create this omni-channel experience when the consumer starts the shopping journey on the web, and then for one reason or another, he switches to the Alexa device. Alexa, start Vestry reference demo.
Welcome to Vestry Motors, electric vehicles for the modern consumer. How else can I help you?
What's in my cart?
You have one item in your cart. Item 1, Pilot Sport AS3 Plus. Would you like to check out?
Search for tires.
I found 10 items that you might be interested in. The top match I found is tire repair kit. I can add the item to your cart or tell you more about it. What can I do for you?
Add to my wish list.
Great. I've added it to your wish list. How else can I help you?
What's on my wish list?
Your wish list has one item in it. Item 1, tire repair kit.
Move item 1 to cart.
Okay, I've moved tire repair kit to your cart. How else may I assist you?
What's in my cart?
You have 2 items in your cart. Item 1, Pilot Sport AS3 Plus semicolon. Item 2, tire repair kit. Do you want to check out?
I want to check out.
There are 2 items in your cart. Your total is $164.81. Would you like to use your default payment method and check out now?
Yes.
Great. Your purchase was successful. How else may I assist you?
Stop.
Thank you for shopping with Vestry Motors. Talk to you again soon.
So this was a short demonstration of how a customer can start a shopping journey on web and then continue it through the Alexa device. And probably the best thing about this is that this shopping journey is enabled by 2 separate reference experiences, the PWA storefront and the Alexa. And you can deploy the Alexa together with the storefront. You can deploy it separately, standalone. You can deploy it together with any other CMS or any other front end. So it gives you all the flexibility to use whatever the touch points you see fit for your customer. Again, if you at some point will need more deep dive demo, please reach out to our partner team and then we can organize this for you. So at this point, I will hand over to Sean, who will provide a technical overview of the reference experiences.
Thank you, Anatoly. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to go over some of the technical capabilities of the reference experiences, some of their development stack, what the architecture really is at a high level, and then we'll talk about how you can also contribute back to some of these reference experiences too. So let's start with some of the technology stack that we actually work with here. We make use of the latest, greatest technologies that are out there in the industry. So everything that we have right now is open source and delivered solely through our Git repositories. We have public open source repositories for all of our experiences, such as the Alexa skill, the chatbot, and of course our reference storefront. We're making use of VS Code as our development IDE. So your developers would be working primarily in VS Code, but you're always open to use any text editor that you want. We just make use of a lot of the plugins that VS Code may provide. And we're using Node.js as our package manager with NPM. In terms of the technology stack, zoning in more on the reference storefront, we're making use of React.js, Babel, Workbox to achieve some of our PWA capabilities and offline features with service worker generation. This is provided by Google's framework. And we're also using Bootstrap 4 and Less to enable us for our componentized styling, as well as some of the UI elements that we have in our storefront. In development, you'll be using Webpack as the runtime development server. And in production, you'll be using Nginx. Now, again, since we are building static assets in our storefront, and a lot of these are web applications, you can really host on any other provider that you may see fit, but this is just what we provide out of the box as a getting started and our best practice. Now let's zone in on some of the architecture for the reference store. So there's multiple pieces here, but let's take a look at really what the flow really is. So it's really a web application, and zoning down on the API layer at the bottom there, you can see that what we do is just talk directly to our Cortex backend e-commerce endpoint. We have our web server layer, and as I mentioned before, in development, you'll be using Webpack, in production, Nginx. And we have our application structure, comprised of our presentation layer and the page and component structure. So if you come in from the top, you can see that as a web browser, you're on your mobile phone, or your tablet, or your Mac. You'll come in, and first thing you get is a bunch of assets that are downloaded locally onto your browser. What do those assets consist of? You have your application and routing assets. So that handles the actual application, the web app itself, plus all of the React routing that goes on in between to navigate you between pages, manage your history and such. And you have all your CSS, local style sheets, images, and anything else regarding your web assets as well, icons or however it may be. Now you'll notice that things like catalog images and site images are hosted remotely. Now the intention for that is that you can host these out of the box on S3 or any other CDN of your choice. And by doing that, you actually enable your marketing or graphics managers to quickly update this content in the backend without the need of redeploying the entire web application. So we provide configurations in the storefront on how you can achieve this. And it's just a simple matter of providing the correct links with the correct contextual info to be able to reference those assets. Now, zoning down more into the page and component layer, you can see we have a separation of pages such as the cart page, the checkout pages, home pages, product, profile, etc. And this is basically the skeleton of your pages for the reference storefront. You can throw in all of the React components in any particular way or fashion that you may see fit into those pages to render those pages to accomplish the tasks that you actually want in your e-commerce storefront. These components make the calls directly to our Cortex environment, so you don't have that layer in between right now. But this is something actually that we're working on as well, in addition to what Jeremy mentioned regarding the SDK. Now, to touch on that piece as well, the multiple pieces that Jeremy did mention earlier, we are also in the midst of recomponentizing our storefront so that those same components that you see, the login, the navbar, product and search, and everything else in between, can be thrown into a CMS or anything else, or a site builder of sorts that you may want to reuse these components for to build your own website, and then make use of our Cortex libraries in the terms of an SDK to be able to build your own storefront for your own purposes as well, to integrate with our Elastic Path platform. Now, something that was provided externally for us as well, we had a strong collaboration with Zilker Technologies, and Zilker came to us and said, we want to be able to contribute something back to Elastic Path's platform. And we see the reference experiences as being the best medium to actually accomplish this. So we worked closely with them and we developed an integration with Power Reviews. Power Reviews is specializing in ratings and reviews and question and answers for any particular commerce scenario or even general cases of ratings and reviews. And so they submitted a PR, which actually included, it's a pull request for any particular Power Reviews integrations with our reference storefront. So now we have out-of-the-box ratings and reviews capabilities. We have question and answers, and this ties back to Power Reviews portal with full reporting capabilities and being able to moderate ratings and reviews that come into our storefront. In addition, we have some new levels of experience too. As Anatoly mentioned, we do integrate with Amplience as well. And what this is the ability to pull these remote images from Amplience and have them harvested up into the reference store. So similar to how I mentioned before that you can host this external catalog images and site images on any particular CDN of your choice, you can also host them on Amplience, but you're not limited there. You can host on any particular CDN, and you just have to provide the correct configuration context values. And we also integrate with Indy. Now, Indy does specialize in user-generated content. So we created a React.js component around Indy to display a lot of this user-generated content that a shopper may upload to a product page or to a particular site in general. And this is all surfaced in the storefront as well when you navigate to a product page. We have some social sharing as well on our product pages, so you can share products to Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, email, and add additional ones as well, depending on how you configure the component. And we also have tagging for Google Analytics, in which some of the requests that we have pertaining to checkout, product impressions, add to cart, remove from cart, are all propagated to Google Analytics, provided that you provide your Google Analytics tracking ID in our configurations. We'll send that over to Google Analytics, and you'll see it surface up in the e-commerce plugin. So you can view all this information in your dashboard. We also have integration with ARKit 2. So ARKit 2 requires you to have these 3D generated objects hosted somewhere, and they'll be rendered directly in the browser on Safari on iOS 12. So provide that you give us those particular location of the 3D object files that you have, add that to your configuration for the reference storefront, and we'll display that 3D icon on the product details page, which you can then tap into, see the object in real space, and also play around with it using ARKit's Quick Look view. Now, we did talk about the Alexa skill. The Alexa skill is one of our reference experiences as well. It's publicly hosted on our Git repository, and it makes use of Alexa's voice services. We ship an AWS Lambda, so we ship all the code for this Lambda in our Git repository, and the Lambda in particular is responsible for calling Elasticpath's Cortex API. So as Anatoly did demonstrate, once the account linking is set up with your Amazon account and our Cortex API linking account, then you can go ahead and start making calls directly to Alexa and then go ahead and start using it. Similarly, we have a Facebook chatbot, and this is also publicly hosted on GitHub as well. We ship a Node.js server, which is our chatbot server, and this can be fully Dockerized for production as well. And this talks directly to our Elasticpath Cortex API. It also makes use of the Facebook Pages API, so it's kind of a medium between that. So that allows us to deploy the chatbot really in multiple places, and it can be interactive through Facebook Messenger or even through our reference storefront. Now let me get into a bit of a technical demo. So here's the storefront that we were just discussing, and I totally showed you what the storefront would look like in terms of add to cart and functionality with Alexa. But talking more about how the requests actually incur in between. So let's refresh there, and you can see all the requests that happen in between here. Something is already being fetched from cache because we have a full PWA, so you can actually save on some of those calls by caching elements using Workbox and the generated service worker that we have. Let's take a look at some of the calls that were made to Cortex. What we're doing is using Elasticpath's Cortex best practices for zooms. So we create our zoom structures here that you can see, and we're making a single call to get all the navigation data that we need for that top level bar, and an additional call to get the updated cart value so that we can render this component right here. So just touching again on the navigation piece, you can see the simple call that we make, how we've structured our zooms to get all the particular child category elements. And when we take a look at the response, you can see we get everything that we need. So this component can cycle through and start iterating over this and start rendering all the categories that are displayed here. Now let's take a look at the storage. You can see that since we're a PWA, we're making use of session storage as well and local storage to actually keep track of all of the images as much as we can so that we have some offline capability as well. And we also have our global manifest here too, which is generated so that you can actually visit this website on your phone, add it to your home screen, and it operates as a PWA. So a full-blown web application that then saves your state, presents you with an offline mode as well in case your network connection is lost, and has an icon itself. So it feels like a full native application, but it's in fact a progressive web application. Now, after seeing all this great stuff, you may be wondering, how do I contribute? How can I contribute something back? So we have our process here for external contributions, and any new enhancements and issues may be reported directly to their respective GitHub repositories as an issue. So your first step is to create an issue on the respective repository and fill out the template. We provide a template as well with all the information you need to provide us with, so we get an understanding of what you may want to contribute. Your second step is to explain the benefits of the enhancements. So tell us why it should really be part of the storefront or the Alexa skill or chatbot or any of our other reference experiences. Then if you're going to go ahead and just implement it yourself, or if you want to collaborate with us, your next steps will be to fork the repository. You'll make your changes, run the local end-to-end unit tests that we supply as well, and then you'll go ahead and submit a PR. And from there, we'll come in and do a review of it. We'll collaborate with you on anything that needs to be changed, or how we can, further improve this along the way. If there's anything else that we need to touch base on regarding bringing this back into the product, and then we'll go ahead and merge it and make it part of the code. So from here, I'd say if you wanted to go ahead and use what we have or leverage anything that we have available, it's public and completely available to everyone. We have our docs published here, and this varies depending on the reference experience that you are touching on. So right now we have our docs published for the storefront in particular. We have our public storefront repository, and we have a public instance of it as well up that you can go ahead and hit right now if you want from your mobile phones or tablets or computers. Now I'll hand it back to Jeremy.
Thanks, Sean. Just bear with us 1 second. So I just want to close out with just to cover out where we're going next with reference experiences and talk a little bit about where we're focusing. So looking at the kind of quadrant here at top left, naturally I referenced a reference store and all the enhancements that have gone into it. You've seen a lot of them today, and we continue to actually do that on an ongoing basis and contribute back to the project. Our focus probably in the near term will probably be around extending into B2B use cases so that we can really showcase some of the capability that sits within Elastic Path for those use cases in a very demonstrable way. Transitioning to top right around technology, we've referenced a couple of times the SDK as an enabler, and really like looking to those components and componentization, so those can really just be dropped into whatever user experience kind of user experience kind of layer that's managing that, to basically commerce enable that experience itself. To the bottom right, just talking about touch points, we do intend discovering to a few new, obviously these looking at kind of emerging technologies. We're hoping to get some input from the larger community, maybe even from today, about new touch points that people are seeing that they would be interested in being reflected in the reference experiences. So we'll both kind of extend laterally as we have so far, but we'll also look to deepen the coverage on some of those existing kind of pillars that you saw around voice, voice past Alexa, chatbots past just the Facebook chatbot, and so on. And the last bottom left area of focus is really around is around community, and that's this webinar is part of that. Really to engage the community around what they're actually what they're seeing, how they're consuming the reference experiences in the reference store, and supporting them in whatever way that they see necessary in order to better deliver their services to the end customer. So yeah, I think with that, I guess we'll see if we actually have some time we do have some time for Q&A. Well, let's see. Hopefully people have been contributing their questions into the chat.
So thanks everyone, and have a good day, have a good night. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.